Luka Doncic is on another planet right now. Over the last few games, since December 23rd, he has had count them, three games, over 50 points. He is doing literally everything on both ends of the floor for the Dallas Mavericks. Over that stretch, he is shooting over 42% from three. As I mentioned, he is scoring really high right now in the NBA. He has raised his scoring average from around 28 plus points a game in his previous few seasons to 34.3 points so far this season. That's a 6-point increase on what he's done in seasons past. He's still keeping his assist numbers and rebound numbers around 9 each. His steals are up as well, around 2-ish a game right now. And of course, his three-point shooting for the season is around 35-36%. Vast improvement from what Luka Doncic was as a rookie coming out, and has shown steady improvement. And right now, with Jalen Brunson no longer on that roster, he is literally having to do everything on the offensive side of the floor for the Dallas Mavericks. If the ball doesn't go through Luka, they ain't scoring in that possession. That's just the way it works right now with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, sure, they have the odd hot and cold streaky shooters that might get on a run. The Tim Hardaway Jr., who's always been a streaky shooter. The guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, another guy who's always been a streaky shooter. Christian Wood, been a great addition to this team, has really started to show some defensive prowess on the other end of the floor now that the Mavericks are trusting him a little bit back there. But again, he's still getting comfortable, getting used to playing with Luka Doncic as well. But he's had a great start to his season with the Dallas Mavericks as well. Everything that the Dallas Mavericks are doing, though, is coming from Luka Doncic. On the defensive end of the floor, he's very active, being able to stay in front of offensive players a little bit more, a little bit longer, not having to rotate off quite as much. The Dallas Mavericks absolutely need to give the man a rest at some point, though, which is why we'll see who they end up bringing in via trade or free agency at some point. But they absolutely have to get the man some help. If you guys haven't been paying attention to the NBA over the past couple weeks because of the holidays, I get it, but you really need to go and look at and see what Luka Doncic has been doing. I mean, the crazy numbers that he's doing, the crazy things that he's doing to keep the Dallas Mavericks not only in contention in these games, but gutting out these tough wins over the winning streak that they're on right now. They've done a fantastic job being able to get Luka's performance as high as it is, and Luka's just taken it another step beyond that. I mean, we just saw the other night against the Houston Rockets, they were down 18 at one point in the game, and just watching his effort in that game, clawing and fighting their way back into the game. Now, the Houston Rockets are one of the worst teams in the NBA right now. The Dallas Mavericks should be a playoff team, even with the roster as currently constructed. But when they're having their cold games, like we've seen them in the past, Tim Hardaway going for like 3 for 13 in a game, Dinwiddie going 3 for 12, those types of things, they have to rely on Luka to be able to gut out those type of performances, and they had to rely on him once again. He struggled in the first half because he's been wearing himself out this entire time. He came into the training camp this offseason much more in shape than he ever had been in the past. Kind of got off to a much better start that he had in the past with the Dallas Mavericks. Came in out of shape in years past. This offseason, he dedicated himself to the game a little bit more. Worked on his game off the court as well. And then, of course, when he was on the court playing international ball, working on his skills, trying to fine-tune things, and never getting away from the basketball court, Luka Doncic elevated himself. Now, of course, for MVP, for my vote, he absolutely is deserving as the number one guy, the most valuable player in all of the NBA. And why is that? Because he's literally doing everything on the floor. I mean, there are a couple of guys that I would say are tied for second, in my opinion. Joel Embiid for the Philadelphia 76ers has been nothing short of fantastic for the better part of a month, and he should be right up there with Luka Doncic as far as favorites for the MVP. The other guy, Nikola Jokic. That team has struggled without him on the floor. We've seen them try to work guys back from injury, Jamal Murray, etc. They have the big contract of Michael Porter Jr. that's taking up a big chunk of that roster right now that they could be using to improve it otherwise. But Nikola Jokic is just doing different types of things. He's kind of a point center, if you will, in Denver anyway. He is a MVP winner and could very well win it again this year. But for my money, Luka Doncic is just doing so many different things right now. And by the way, over the last couple of weeks, in case you guys just need some clarification on just how good he's been, nobody, not one person in the history of the game is doing things that Luka Doncic has been doing for the past couple of weeks. Not Wilt, not Michael Jordan, not LeBron James. Nobody can touch what he's been doing on the court. You might just want to check out the man. He's been nothing short of fantastic. Now, of course, for the Dallas Mavericks, they have to get him some help. This cannot expect to be continued and be able to be a successful formula for success to be able to win a championship. That front office should be ashamed of themselves for not surrounding him with better talent from the beginning. They made a good effort. They brought in Kristaps Porzingis at the very beginning. But again, it was a big gamble at the time. It ultimately didn't work out. But where was the next piece? They said, "Oh no, we can wait and try to handpick the guy to fit next to Luka." Well, I heard a whole bunch of talk shows out there and podcasts. I know there's one out there. I'm not going to name them by name, but I'm pretty sure you know who you are. But you said over and over and over again that the Dallas Mavericks should wait and pick the guy that fits perfectly with Luka. You have time. Luka's on a cheap contract. Well, his extension just kicked in, by the way. The time is up. Kristaps Porzingis didn't work out, and now he's the only star left on this team. And sure, they traded Porzingis to be able to get more tradable contracts like Bertans and Dinwiddie if they were able to improve their performance with Dallas. All well and good. But where's the second star next to Luka? You lose Jalen Brunson in the offseason. Who are you replacing him with? I mean, in my estimation, they should have gone out there and tried to bring in Malcolm Brogdon. He would have been a perfect plug-and-play type of player. Instead, he goes to Boston, which, by the way, is the #1 seed in the East right now. They've been fantastic so far this season. Jason Tatum's been on another level as well, but I wouldn't say he's nearly on the level of Luka or Embiid or Jokic. So those of you who are trying to push him as an MVP chance, or a hopeful anyway, you might want to tone down that talk. All three of these other players are significantly ahead of what Jason Tatum's been doing. I mean, he has a much better complementary roster around him as well. You kind of have the older statesman, if you will, in Al Horford. You have the Defensive Player of the Year in Marcus Smart, a #2 star in there in Jaylen Brown. You bring in Malcolm Brogdon. You have a good defensive player in Grant Williams, and you have a decent bench with Robert Williams coming back from injury, as well as other players. They've done a great job, and they deserve to be commended, especially considering that they lost their head coach that just took them to the NBA Finals after he was suspended for a year for inappropriate relations with an employee there of the Boston Celtics. They've done a great job as far as being able to right the ship in the offseason, be able to get the right pieces in there, and just go off and not miss a beat coming into the season. They've been fantastic. Other players that you might consider. LeBron James always deserves to be in the conversation. Have you looked at the standings? I understand he's still putting up insane numbers for a player of his age, but he isn't near the conversation right now of a Embiid, a Jokic, or a Doncic. I hear a lot of conversation out there about Giannis possibly entering the conversation at some point. Nah, not having it. He isn't on the level right now of those three players. So if you guys had an MVP ballot right now, who would you guys vote for? Would Luka be your #1? Would Embiid be your #1? For Jokic, would he be your #1? All those names deserve some thought as far as the MVP consideration. But for my vote, there's no more valuable player to his team and the league than what Luka Doncic is doing right now and what he's been doing all season long. I mean, did I mention his scoring average is up 6 and he's still maintaining his assists? His defense is significantly improved as well. I know Luka Doncic was basically, a turnstile at the subway, if you will, allowing players just go past them, the Olay defense, if you will. Luka Doncic is not that anymore. He has been able to be more successful on defense. His fouls are up. That shows you defensive effort as well. And he's always been an emotional player. You're going to see the tease. But as far as Luka Doncic goes, he has never been more valuable to both the Dallas Mavericks and the NBA than he is right now. But again, that front office needs to do something. The Bulls supposedly have some internal turmoil. Maybe they can pick off a DeRozan or a Levine. There's conversation out there about Kyle Kuzma being available. Not exactly a star, but certainly would help the Dallas Mavericks. There's a lot of guys out there that are on the trade block as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline in a couple of months. You guys might want to keep your eyes peeled for what Dallas is going to do to try to surround Luka Doncic with a second star or improved offensive talent around him. But we'll see how they end up working things out. They need another ball handler on that offense. They brought in Kemba Walker. But when Luka Doncic was out for one game, they used him against Cleveland, played over 40 minutes in the game. He was fantastic, and he can still do it. But his knee is nowhere near being able to handle that type of pressure anymore. And we saw he had to be sat down for a couple of games after that because he cannot be relied on for that many minutes again. And so as far as the rotation goes in Dallas, you cannot count on Kemba Walker to be one of your top 3 guards. And it's a mistake to think that he could have been at some point. Now, as far as the Dallas Mavericks, they need to bring in another ball handler. They need to bring in another star. If that's to be the same person, so be it. But the Mavericks need to do something to get the man some help. But as I mentioned from the top of the video, he is on another planet right now with what he's doing. I really invite you guys to check out what exactly he's been doing down in Dallas, and it certainly deserves some respect. A standing ovation for the effort he's been able to put in over the past couple of weeks and over the entire season. The Dallas Mavericks would not have a winning record right now without Luka Doncic. They wouldn't even be sniffing the play-in right now without Luka Doncic. That's how impactful he is to that team. Not saying anything against Jokic or Embiid, but both of those teams would be in better positions than the Dallas Mavericks would be without their star player. And that's kind of where I'll leave it. Luka Doncic deserves to have your vote for MVP. Let us know who you think they should trade for, who they should get some help for Luka from. Who do you think is going to win the MVP? What's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your MVP? For me, Luka's one. Tie for second for me would go to Embiid and Jokic. I guess if I had to, I'd put Embiid second and Jokic third. I mean, it's very interchangeable to me. And then you can get into guys like Tatum, that level of player. Giannis for the 4 and 5 spot. For me, though, Luka 1, Embiid and Jokic 2 and 3. But thank you guys for joining us here at The Upside. And make sure to subscribe. Follow us here at The Upside Sports Network for all the latest from the MLB, NBA, NFL, and the NHL.